Hello, Mr. Romero here, and I wanted to go over the project file for Ambush, which is my most recently released song. And I'll start with kind of the order I made the song. So I'm going to cover the drop first, and then the intro, and then the build up, and then the break section, and then I just made the rest in chronological order. And then I'll do mix and master last. So we should start with the drums. They're what I made first. So the kick didn't actually take very long, but if we play the kick without any of its processing, it is so the bottom half is a sine wave with a pitch envelope that does this. There's no real reason why I did that, except I wanted to emphasize that, and it's what sounded good. I turned the pitch envelope all the way up, apparently, and then I have volume envelope going pretty quick. So without the, I guess without the top, this is what the fundamental sounds on its own. And then I added this little clicky blip on top, which you can tell has like absolutely no decay time. So it's just, and it has some FM, and neither of those things have very much interesting stuff going on. They're just FMing it, and then together it's and then I add an OTT to give it more clarity, because I mean, who doesn't put an OTT on everything? OTT, you just slap it on something and bam, it's already better. The next thing I put on a distortion module, gives it more grit. And then since if you look here, okay, wait. I'm gonna bypass this and I'm gonna turn it on. So if you look here, it's really strong around this area, and I didn't want that, so that I could leave more space for the sub. So it's very minor. And then the snare. The snare took me 2 hours, and it's a layer between a cymatic snare and an actual snare. I consolidated both my kick and snare to audio, so. And so yeah, this is the snare. It didn't have much like punch to it, so I had to layer it with an actual cymatic snare. But I try to hide that one under the actual snare a little more. In this case, I have the fundamental a lot higher than the kick. I actually put it really high. It's what sounded good. And then there's a little bit of pitch envelope. And then, you know, the volume does what it normally does. So I guess that's what it sounds like on its own. And then the next part, well, and then the next part is this middle part it's just a little FM blip. Again, really low attack and decay. And that's about it. And then I just put it at weird frequencies. So here's the fundamental and the blip together. And then the next part is the first part of noise. It's bandpass noise, where I modulate. Wait, what? Hold on. Oh no, okay. Here I modulate the cutoff and resonance so that the cutoff goes up and then the band width goes down so that it gets quieter. And then I have a volume automation on the noise. Noise part 2. Actually, wait, no, here's what the noise sounds like on its own. I forgot to do this. Noise part 2 is what makes the snare, like, the really high-end part of it. I forgot to, yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's high pass, and then I just volume automate it. And so then it becomes, and then of course I layer it with the other one. And as far as processing goes, I just have distortion, reverb, and EQ, so turning them all off, and then the distortion is like kinda there, it's not really there though. Just gives it a little more. And then reverb, very slight, and then the EQ high passes it, so that doesn't get in the way of the kick and basses it up. The next part I made would be the basses, which are so this like Derniel is two different basses. The first one is a serum, which is how I make a lot of my 808s, is I have a sine wave and some noise. I'm going to turn off the processing for right now so that you can just hear the sine wave and the noise. Without the distortion, it's just... And then... Yeah. It's pretty simple, but it sounds good every time. Then I put a Vocodex on it so that it's not as gritty, but it still has the... Yeah, it's not as gritty, but it still has the feeling, or the... Anyway. It preserves the same, like, structure while not being as gritty. And then I just put a... Whoa. I apparently put a massive mid EQ on it. I just got an email. So, yeah. That's what I do there. And then after that, I just have a... And this is just a sine wave with massive pitch automation. And then I think I distorted a little. Let me check. No, I OTT and distort it. Nothing very special about that. And then I guess it gets some reverb in the bass rack. Somewhere it gets reverb. I'm not going to bother figuring out where. In the part that's not those basses, we have... All of these basses are just Reeses, which are a type of bass that uses two voices of unison and then detuning them differently on different parts of the spectrum to screw up the way they phase cancel, which is a lot of big words, and there are definitely better ways to explain it. If you want to learn about Reeses, the person I would suggest is Seamless, or Seamlesser. He has good tutorials on them. I'm not as good at explaining them, but I know the theory behind them. So this graph is what makes it like K-Waltz low pass, but you'll notice how over time it gets more and more out of phase with each other, and that's because I changed the graph so that some parts have the unison further away from the harmonics. And then I don't have it on the fundamental at all because I want the fundamental to be dry. And all these basses are all basically the same. And if we go to the processing, we just have an OTT, and then I'll just go through each thing individually. So we have the bass. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say this earlier, but distortion is very important to these. So we have that bass, and it's a simple Reese, and then I OTT it. And it sounds a little better. And then this is the filter I use with this blue automation. So like you can hear the difference. And then I apply more distortion because more distortion. The reason these basses sound different is because I messed with the graph on different ones more. So for example, this one is just more intense on the phase randomness, I think. Right? Phase randomness? No, okay, it's not the phase randomness. But I change. Some's different and it makes it sound different. Oh yeah, it's the detune settings. I changed that slightly to make it screw up the harmonics more. And then this second EQ is the one I use for the low pass and the build up. Right here. So, yeah. In terms of the rest of the drop, well, going through the basses real quick, some other things that are important to know about Reese's is that when you get to like here, you can clearly hear the phase movement, especially in that top end. And that's because when it was in the higher octaves and it moved faster, the things got so out of phase a lot quicker that when it goes back to the lower octave, you can clearly hear it. That is the main thing that's going on here. I'm going to revisit this drop when we talk about mixing, but not yet. The next thing I added was this to fill up the downtime. Wait. Okay, yeah. So what that actually is we have a vital, and in its unison settings, its main saw, super saw, is on the power chord setting, which is why it's a chord instead of just a saw, even though I'm playing a single note, as you can tell there. This is a basic super saw with white noise to fill up the space. There's nothing too special about it. This is also just a super saw. This one has the filter automation. And then it has this one, which is what makes it like dun 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 no 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 instead of just instead of that we have which just gave it that little extra touch that I needed. In terms of processing, apparently I put distortion and OTT on this too. I think I'm sensing a pattern and some reverb. So I guess without any of that, which is kind of bland, I guess not bland, it's just, it didn't have the same amount of power as I wanted. As per usual, so the wave shaper and the OTT go on. And then I just wanted to fill up more of that space and didn't want to have the chorus to just be like, I wanted it to have more of a decay on the end, so. Alright, this thing, I use this in the intro too, and it's what you hear in the intro, like the most. It's a Labs, and it's one of the handbells, specifically the Ghost handbell, and I changed, I think, only the reverb. No, okay, I changed some of it, but yeah, it's just a Labs, and then I put reverb and EQ on it so that it doesn't sound terrible. Without either of those, it's just... So, if I turn on the EQ and I bypass the things that are actually doing something, you can see that there's like this stuff that's not the fundamental, and that's not, like, hold on. I didn't want that to be as prominent as it was, so I added this, which kind of toned down a lot of it. And then when I'm actually playing a note, there was a frequency I didn't want right there, so I turned it down a lot. And then I just put a reverb on it because it's a bell, and bells are really good with more reverb. I'm stuttering a lot, but I get my point across. And so that's what makes it work a lot better. The next thing, this is an impact I use quite often recently. I think it's just a serum with noise. Oh, it's two. Okay, it's two different serums with noise that do this. And so we have it decrease in pitch and volume. It's basically the only thing that's going on here. So this LFO is an envelope, so when the note gets hit, it goes down in pitch and volume, and then I use it in the build-up, so it starts going up afterward. And so I use it as a riser. This is the same thing, but a different noise, I believe. That's Aircan 1, and that's AC Hum 1, yeah. And I think the second one gives it more tonality. Hold on. Right, so that's the more noisier part of it, and this is the tonal part. The effects I put on, just an OTT. As I said, like, put OTT on everything. Alright, and then we have an impact. Just a cymatics impact. And I put it in the back, and then it worked. Don't bother with this automation clip. It's everywhere, but it doesn't actually do anything. Except, well, actually, it's the color of the visualizer's background. So that in the calmer parts, it's a different color. In terms of embellishments on the drop, this part right here, I'm gonna have to play it from. I do this often. I take the snare, and I have this reverb, and it has no wet, but the decay time is all the way up, and then I use it to sort of fill breaks and let you know that something, like, in this measure, you know, it just kind of goes in to the next part, and I do that a lot in my songs. And then in terms of the bell, I think this is the same bell, but I'll double check. This is not the same bell. Okay. So insert 25 has an OTT and a reverb. The OTT is so that it sticks out more. Okay, this is a basic handbell, and I use the OTT to make it stick out more, and then the reverb to make it sound more bell-like. So, yeah. Without the reverb, it's, and then without the OTT, it's just. So the OTT makes it more shiny, is what I'm gonna say. This serum, I think, is a super saw. Yeah, it's a super saw, and then I have the triangle on the bottom to reinforce some harmonics. And then noise is just always a good thing to put on a super saw. In terms of the processing, I have just a little more unison type things, and then I did the dimension just to make it sound less like it was just in your ears and more like it was kind of somewhere close to you. The distortion to give it a little more character. A low pass, which is what makes it the you know what it does. And then OTT at the end because OTT. And then the reverb because reverb. Just to fill up some space. And then I give it a ton of high end. I really kick up that high end at the end. I want more high end. And then I kick up the mids to fill up that area. in other parts of the song. I think really just opposed to the bell, but... So, yeah, that's that part. Other things used in the drop. Well, this pattern right here, this is the same supersaw. Okay, well, it's a stack of supersaws, and I think it's just every supersaw I've used up until this part. So we have the... Oh no, okay, these are different supersaws. This is a basic supersaw. There's not much to say about it. Distortion, envelope, supersaw. Oh yeah, that's muted. That's a bass from a song that I posted a really long time ago under the video titled Random Mediocre Thing, and it's the second drop bass if you want to actually hear what it is. This is another basic supersaw. In fact, it's the one I went over earlier. And then this is... Oh yeah, that's the supersaw I just went over in the earlier part. And then this is a Reese that I just put over it, you know, the... I don't think there's anything special going on in the second half of the drop. Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of the same. I forgot to go over the sub earlier. Oh yeah, I said I'd do that at the end. Never mind. Okay, the intro. So the intro has the bell that I was talking about earlier, that, down here. Wait, no, down here. That does a... I use it in the intro. And then I've, this thing. And what this is it's a sine wave with noise. And I kind of low pass the noise a lot, so that doesn't get in the way of the character of the sine wave, but it still adds just a little bit of the top end. And then I distort it and apply reverb. What's on insert 32? Okay, I do a lot here. Let's take this one step back. So the sound on its own is just, which is very simple. And then I take down the sub of it because I still want its sub to be there in the ending, like in the final product, because it's one of the only things that's actually in the sub area of this part of the song. So I take out a lot of its sub anyway, but I still want some to be there. Then, as I do with this kind of sound, I apply Vocodex so that it just doesn't feel as analog. Or, no, I guess it doesn't feel as digital, is what I'm trying to say. It still feels pretty digital, though. And then I apply reverb again, because I just wanted to fill up space. Generally, I didn't want it to stick out, and so I just put the reverb on it. And then this EQ. What? I guess I put the sub that I took out earlier, I just put it back in. I'm not entirely sure what I meant to do by that, but, and then, of course, the two things layered. Okay. Now we have this, this file. It is a 30-minute file posted by someone in the Beat Saber modding group Discord. And they read the entire Wikipedia article for chairs. And I essentially just used the first, like, few minutes of it in this song. Because I'm not making a 30-minute song. And I generally take this out in the more intense sections because it doesn't need to be there, and it's just kind of adding like unneeded stuff to it. and that's generally not good. So here's what it sounds like without any processing.
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of seat.
I did pitch it down, right? Yeah, I pitched it down 4 semitones. And then I applied a limiter to make the syllables more even instead of what they were before, because I'm going to go through and make it a lot quieter, and I still want everything to come out.
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of seat.
It's basically just compression. And then I make it really, like, I really bandpass it.
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of seat. Its primary features are two pieces of a durable material attached as a back and seat to one another.
And that's what gives it the more, like, that's what makes it more in the background instead of more in the forward part. And then I apply distortion to make it sound like it's older, which is kind of the feel I was going for there. And so it becomes...
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of seat.
And then I apply reverb, just like everything else, to make it sound less distorted.
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of...
And then I cut out the sub and I take down the highs.
One of the basic pieces of furniture, a chair, is a type of seat. Its primary...
Yeah, and then I'll get over to this side near the end of this video. Okay. In terms of everything else that's going on here, we have one of the respaces from earlier. Not much to say about that. We have an impact, another cymatics one. Okay, so this part, we keep everything from the intro, actually except this thing, which was the sine wave with the low pass noise. And in this case, we add... Actually, a lot of things are different here. Okay. So... we have the kick, obviously, just to anchor the beat. And then this impact, this is a very weird sound. This is a serum that's a super saw with very, very low detune. And then compression and distortion. And the reason it rings out for so long and all those things is because I compress it again. Actually, wait, okay. So. That's what it sounds like, and then I compress it again. And then I apply vocodex, because it's that type of sound. And then more distortion, as I do with like everything. And then a bunch of reverb. And this reverb has 2 seconds until it hits 0 dB, which means that's a lot of decay time, basically. And then I high pass it some, so that doesn't get in the way of other things. Alright, we have this sound, which I've already covered. We have this. So, if you're wondering why I skipped that, I'm going to come back to it in a moment. This is... okay, it's this one. Yeah, this is noise and a super saw. Huh, wait. Okay, insert 28 must do stuff. Yeah, okay, insert 28 does stuff. So it's... So this thing right here modulates the fine-tuning of it, which is what makes it vibrato. And then this is what modulates the low pass, which is kind of what makes it like the buzzy. No, not the buzzy, but the actual low pass noise part of it. And then I was going for something buzzy, so I applied reverb, obviously. Just a little. That actually wasn't what made it buzzy. And then the buzzy part of it is when I high pass it. Alright, so that's all the interesting things in that section. And then we just have low pass drums. Yes, I apply distortion, not distortion, reverb to it. Insert 22 is an EQ for the low pass. And then I have an EQ just to take down the low end because it gets muddier. And then that's the reverb. I'm not entirely sure why I didn't just use the same reverb as before, but I think I just didn't get the reverb that I wanted. So, yeah. There's nothing that I haven't covered already in this next section. We have a Reese, we have the drums, we have the bells, we have the supersaw thing, we have the noise, and then we have, okay, actually this is something different. This is just a very slight, just to get you back into the free section, it just kind of sucks you back in. There's nothing that different about that. Here I low pass the basses and then have them take over the drop more as it goes on. I have that weird saw impact thing. I have the bells. I have the drums that fade in using low pass again. I have the noise. I have this noise that I covered during the drop, but not really. The one that's... Well, actually, I did cover that fully. I just didn't show you the second half. So that. And then this is, I think, exactly what it looks like. Which is the supersaw I already covered, just playing an ascending line. It's similar to that. Alright, and then we have this, impact. Cymatics impact, woo. I'm not entirely sure why that's there, but it is. It's a little violoncello thing. And then we have the bell. Alright, so the piano here is a lab soft piano. I like my labs. I really do. It's a soft piano with a lot of reverb. It's going into insert 30, which has an EQ that just makes it louder. And then it's going into the mix and sidechain and all the stuff. So I actually debated putting more reverb on this, but the thing about putting more reverb on this is that once I do that, it kind of just becomes melodic noise. So I didn't. I have this impact again, that, you know, the swell, and then I bring back the chair, and then So it's one of the supersaws we covered earlier with the handbell that was normally playing. No, okay, this is a different music box. Never mind. I have a different music box this time, and it's just playing the melody. I'll go over that more in depth in a moment. And it's got an EQ and reverb. And then this bass I've already covered. I think I covered it twice. So what's actually going on the melody here? So the basic chord of it is minor 1, sharp 7 diminished sharp 7. I'm not doing anything too special here, as you can tell. Major 6, I think? Yeah, major 6. And then... Wait. No, wait. This was a major 5. And then this was a major... My brain's confuddling itself. Hold on. 1, flat 7, in the key of D flat harmonic minor. Right. No, wait. Ugh. I'm confuddling myself more and more. Anyway, it's a D sharp minor, D diminished, B major, B flat major. And that's the whole melody. In terms of little things that I do to make it sound just a little better, I vary the velocity of the notes so that they sound more human. So, for example, you could hear the D there the most, while the other two were a little quieter. I varied timings, so instead of this just being a hit, like a chord, it was an arpeggio. And then I also had it play slightly offbeat a lot, again, to make it sound more human. And that's about everything that's going on there. Again, the bell does the exact same thing. In terms of the second build-up, it's the exact same build-up, but without the basses, and instead I have this bell that just goes... which is just an ascending pattern where it's minor third, down a half step, or down to the next scale degree, I guess, and then it goes up, and then I change it up at the end, just to let you know that doesn't keep going up. There's nothing different about the build-up, except that I also have the chair in there this time. Oh yeah, and then... I debated of naming it from the Old French Chair because of this part. But I decided that would deter viewers. That's my reasoning. Here it's the exact same as the other drop, except I just changed some of the notes here and there and some of the arrangements so that it doesn't sound like it's the same, but it sounds similar. Same thing goes for the second half. So, I guess I never went over the MIDI for these, but it's essentially just a lot of slide notes, and there was no real thought to them. It was just kind of whatever felt good, or whatever sounded correct. Alright, now we get to mixing. So, I said this at the beginning, that I'd go over this sound right here, or I guess I'd go over the sub. So it's a really low sine wave. Is essentially that's really all it is. And then I just low pass it a bunch just in case there are clicks to it, which I actually think there is. Yeah, there's a little bit of a click to it. And then it goes directly into the sidechain. Okay. So now that we have all of that out of the way, let's go over the actual mix of things. So when we're listening to the song, well, I guess I should go from the... I'll start on the sidechain. This is a sidechain. What else do I have to say? The drums make everything else duck under them is what a sidechain is. You'll notice you can't hear the drums when I turn it off. Well, you can, but not as well. And so... And you'll notice that it's just, it makes everything duck under the drums, is really the only difference there. In terms of the drum mix, I add a little reverb to glue the drums together. Wait. I think I already went over the kick and snare processing, so I won't do that again. The bass processing has an OTT, a wave shaper, and 2 EQs again. Without any of that, it sounds like this. Not as much grit. You'll notice that now it has a lot more high end, but not as much middle and low. So I add that back in with the wave shaper, I think. Yeah. And then the EQ. This is a high pass, so that doesn't get in the way of the sub, which I wanted only to be occupied by a few background elements, the actual sub and the kick. I generally like doing that because it makes it feel a lot steadier. And then this, I just use some minor EQ to make space for other parts of the song. Oh yeah, speaking of the sub, I forgot to go over this. The reason I didn't have the sub just follow the basses like I do in most of my tracks was, actually the main reason was since I'm lazy. But I wanted a steady sub instead of one that moved a ton, and I just felt like that was a good way of doing it. In terms of mixing in the synthesizer, like the melodic parts to it, again, I high pass them. And then you'll see here, I cut out this area, which is where the basses live, and then I kind of duck this part a little, which is where the cymbals live, and some of the bass harmonics do. This one I high pass and low pass a lot more. And then it can't occupy this part because I've high passed it, so that part doesn't matter. But I put this up a little bit, because that's where it should land, which is why I put the part in the basses lower. This is a lot of talking, I know, and there's not, like, it's kind of hard to understand. It's not the kind of thing that you just, like, it's a very noticeable difference, but in the end, all of this makes it sound a lot better. This part I toned down because it's where the things going into the synth section go. In the effects, I high pass them past the sub and some of the bass. I just didn't really want that stuff. I cut out the well, not cut out, but I make the spot where the basses and the synths lie a lot quieter, and then I cut out some of the high end for the cymbals, which are over here, which actually go there, but I made them louder. So the cymbals mainly occupy the high end there. There's not really much else to the mixing except I got a bunch of my levels right. I made sure there wasn't too much reverb. I made sure everything had its space in the frequency spectrum and in the song, in terms of, like, making sure that there wasn't too many things going on at once and then not enough things going on. On my master, I EQ out so that the low end's a little louder, but not that much. And then I put the tiniest touch of reverb, just to make everything glue together a little more. You'll notice that I really compress this low end. Actually, hold on. Let me do this like I did everything else. Here's the song without any of my mastering. For starters, the kick is a lot less prominent, and overall the song is much less steady in volume. So to make, well, I boost the lows a little more. I guess we'll start with that. And then I boost I glue it all together. And then this Maximus right here that compresses the low end, and the mids and highs not so much, but the low end a lot, is what makes the kick more low, I guess. And then I have this patcher here, which essentially just takes some of the high end and it splits it between the stereo a little more so that it sticks out a little more. It's a slight touch, but it makes it sound a lot better. This thing is for when I was recording. I'm not entirely sure what I was recording. Take a seat. Oh. That was a planned thing. We don't talk about that one. And then I just limit the song so that doesn't get too loud. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.